Are you guys ready for a true challenge? This is a lot of curves. This is pretty much as complex as it gets when it comes to trying to do curves. So that's why I went ahead and chose this, because I think you guys can handle it with a little bit of practice. We're going to get the pen tool. We're just going to start anywhere. There's 3 shapes, actually 4 shapes involved. We have the swan S shape. I think it's shaped like an S for a reason, because it's a little swan logo. And we have kind of these 3 feathers that come out. We're going to do each one a little bit at a time. So let's start with the point of the beak. I like starting with points for some reason. I'm going to click right here. I kind of see that as a natural curve here. So now I'm not clicking on anything, and let me go ahead and flip it to a stroke. And notice how it's not giving me the curve I like. Whenever that happens, I'm going to click back on the point, and then it gets to start all over and gives me a fresh new point. So I'm just clicking and holding. These curves don't seem too bad right now. Just clicking and holding. You can always go back with a direct selection tool and our curvature tools, add new anchor points, adjust the handles to get better curves later, so it doesn't have to be perfect. So this is going to be one of those points where I'm going to release it, and it may not give me the curve I like. It's not giving me the curve naturally I like. So I'm going to click back on the original anchor point and start over with a new kind of curve arc. And that is the most challenging thing about the pen tool, is when do I start over and click on a point? When do I keep doing the curve it gives me naturally? That took me a while to kind of figure out. So this is kind of an interesting bend here. This is going to be a little bit complicated. This is when you're going to start to need to do more anchor points. So you see how that looks a little strange. It just doesn't look good. Just do Command Z, or basically edit, undo. But Command Z is kind of a quick little way to go back. You're going to be using that a lot with the pen tool. And that might be a case where we need to get the curvature tool and get a better curve there later. So don't worry if it's not perfect. We're just getting the basic shape. You can always go back and fix it later. Clicking and holding, clicking and holding. And don't worry, I'm not going to painfully go through this entire swan step by step. I'm going to speed it up here soon, but I just wanted to give you an idea of how I was doing the curves. So you notice there when I did that curve doesn't look very good. Kind of goes here and bends. It's not smooth. So I'm just going to do Command Z and see if I can't fix that issue. And that might be an issue I need to solve later with the curvature tool or with the direct selection tool. So I'm going to resolve that later. Click and hold. Click and hold, and this is where do I select what's going to be next. That's the practice that you'll learn as you do more and more of these. It's really hard to teach that because sometimes it's just kind of intuitive. Like I just know like right here is a really good point to go, because I know kind of how I kind of know that natural curve that pen tools do. You just learn that through time and through practice. So let's do the beak, and let's flip this to, let's not do fill yet. Let's go in and see if we can't make this a skinnier stroke so we can really see the exact lines here. And this is where we're going to have to go back and fine tune our selection. So we're just going to click our anchor points. I have the direct selection tool selected. And right here is a good point right here. So let me add an anchor point. So I'm just going to press the addition sign, add an anchor point, and then I'm going to press the direct selection tool, which is going to be A, and just kind of move it and adjust the handles. There's also times when the curvature tool can really help too. So let me see if I can't find kind of a point where that would be helpful. So right here, so I have the direct selection tool and I can try to straighten this out a little bit, and that works pretty good. And right here, kind of a sharp point. That's probably one of those points that I had to start over with my curve, and I click back on the original anchor point. And since we added another anchor point, I have a little bit more control, and I was able to kind of slowly smooth it out. And I don't think these are going to give me, these handles are really going to adjust. So if I adjust this, notice how it adjusts down the line. Well, we don't want that. So let's go back, let's add an anchor point, and then now I can kind of get the direct selection tool and kind of have a little bit more control over the curves. So you notice how it's slowly getting to be matched. It's taken time and it's taken us adding anchor points. So right here, let's add an anchor point. Click and get our direct selection tool or do our keyboard shortcuts, whatever you feel comfortable with. And notice how we were able to match that. Same with this, add anchor point, switch back, do my keyboard shortcut this time. Direct selection tool V or direct selection tool A, click and hold. So sometimes it takes, look how many anchor points it took to kind of get that smooth neck. It took a couple extra ones to get it on. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of this, kind of get all that straight, because right here it gets a little wonky. That doesn't look good at all. So what we could do is I can add lots of anchor points here. So add an anchor point there. Click on A. So let me do a time lapse so you don't have to sit there and be absolutely bored out of your mind with this pen tool stuff, because I think you will have lots of practice to do here soon. So I'm going to go ahead and speed it up. Enjoy the ride. So don't forget about your curvature tool. It takes a lot of separate curvature points to kind of get that curve and have maximum control. So I have the curvature tool and I'm just creating new points. And the more points I'm creating, the more control I have over our curve. So these are all little curvature points I use with the curvature tool. And it just helps you get that more rounded look as opposed to adding an anchor point. So just go between adding anchor points and curvature points, just depending on what is working for you. So all that was just creating different curvature points with the curvature tool. So here we are. I'm going to flip this to fill, and that is pretty close. We can always adjust a few things. That looks a little wonky up there. So let's change that. We might be adding a few of these guys, little curvature tool points. It takes a couple to kind of rein in the wild curves it creates. So it's going to take a lot of points, because you know, notice how it changes other sides. That's why it takes a lot of different points to really rein in that curvature tool. Let's go ahead and see kind of the difference. See them side by side. It's a pretty close rendition. Let's go ahead and do this little these little feathers here real quick with the pen tool. If you can master the pen tool, you are a rock star at Adobe Illustrator. This is the hardest part about graphic design, is the pen tool. So I want to create like a nice shape there. I can click right here at the apex of the curve, do a nice curve, and then come back and match it and adjust my little handle. So here we are, swan number 1 and the original swan. I think we did a pretty good job there. Took some time, probably about 10 minutes in total to trace that. That's about normal. Completed a lot already. Look at what we've done. We've done 3 whole sheets of work. Look at all the tools that we've learned. And of course, feel free to watch these lessons a couple of times, because we just covered a lot. And we're halfway through the tracing sheet. I promise it gets really fun. We're going to be doing some really practical symbols, real life symbols that you might be making for a logo design or a flyer or poster or Instagram post. All these are things and shapes that have real world applications. We're getting to that soon, and we're going to be doing that next. So let's go and learn about the Shape Builder tool.